So let's hop back in. You're from San Diego, California, but whereabouts in San Diego? Where are you from?
Oh, so I'm originally from here, from around Barrio Logan, but I moved to I'm gonna say further southeast, and in Canto, like Skyline, that Skyline area. So I'm from like around Morris and SEPA and down Woodman and up and down Skyline. That's my neighborhood.
Okay, so for the people that know the San Diego hip hop community, that's really where it kind of was born, if there was one.
Yeah. People cite Southeast as being the cultural center of yeah, I guess you could say the cultural center of San Diego, so to speak. It's the urban, Fourth District has always been kind of like that's the home of the diversity of the people of color, stuff like that. So I'm from there, but I like to say that there are from people from all walks of life end up there too. So it's not just like where it lives; it's where everybody ends up to come do stuff. So it's just it makes sense that we're here at the church. I feel like that's a perfect, representation of the center of the neighborhood, even though it's based in this part of the community. But yeah, no, so I'm from Southeast San Diego. If anybody asks where that's from, it's kind of Barrio Logan, National City, Encanto, Skyline, that's where I'm from.
Okay, all right, got it. So yeah, let's jump into the music a little bit. Where did your journey with music start? As early on as you can remember.
I was a kid banging on pots and pans like most musicians start out to be.
Like 2 and 3 or like 5 and 6?
Yeah, 2 and 3. I remember the first time I picked up a broom and I was like sweeping the floor, and my mom told me I would like be playing with the broomstick, making that kind of stuff, making beats. It's very cliche, like, oh yeah, he was picking up stuff and making beats and stuff all the time. But the first real memory I had was in elementary school, the first time I picked up a violin.
The violin. So you play strings?
Yeah. So I went to a magnet school, and they had like a program, obviously, where they introduce kids. They give like an introductory course for like a week or so of like introducing kids to the whole of the, not the music industry, so to speak, obviously, but the music, like the music, what would you call that? I don't even remember, like to classical music, to jazz, to the whole of
music as an art form?
Yeah, music as an art form. Yeah. I wouldn't know what to call that, but it was a program that they had, and if kids wanted to, they could continue with like a certain with say the San Diego Youth Symphony or something like that, or San Diego Chamber or whoever, and they would be in that program. Then they because of the magnet program, they would send them off to different schools, stuff like that, and certain schools had certain programs with certain things, and I ended up at San Diego School of Creative and Performing Arts. And I kept playing the violin there, and that's where my journey really started.
So how long did you play the violin? Did you stick with it? Do you still play?
I don't play nearly as much, but I played up and through college, actually. So I ended up going to school for music, but I spent my entire career, my middle school and high school career, learning chamber music, symphony music, being classically trained, being jazz trained as well. And before I started doing anything else, that was what I was doing. I was learning how to read, write, and play music.
Oh wow! Okay, really great to know. Mm-hmm. Did you pick up any other instruments in that time?
Tons. Period? Yeah, that's
okay,
where
give us, like,
I think
a little arrays.
Yeah.
As far off as the triangle, maybe.
No, but so the violin wasn't necessarily what I wanted to play, but it still interested me, and I just went with it anyway. Initially it was just like, all right, fine, and my mom really wants me to do it, and I'm having fun. Like I just enjoy playing music, I enjoy listening to music, and I like classical music. I did. Like, something about me as a kid, like it made sense to me. And I aside from picking up playing the violin, I also picked up playing percussion. I also picked up playing the piano. I taught myself, but I also took some classes at school, and that got me into wanting to write and read more. So I was at some point in my high school career, I was writing music for different bands. I was reading music in like 4 or 5 different bands. I was playing music outside of school and like gigging. I was doing stuff that adults 10 years my junior, 10 years my senior, 10 years my senior were doing, and I had like a professional career before I left high school, essentially.
Okay,
You know, and
well,
that was just part of the program and stuff.
that leads me to a question I had. I was gonna ask it way later, but that is really good information. So do you consider yourself? You wear many hats. Do you consider yourself a DJ first, a producer first, a composer, an artist, all four? It changes on the day. What do you see yourself as?
I'm definitely a musician first, but I think kind of being a musician kind of covers all those.
It does, yeah.
So I'd like to say, yeah, I'm a musician. I guess part of being a musician, part of being a DJ is can involve being a musician, knowing how music works gives you an advantage, and it has play in how you select music live in front of people. Being a producer, obviously, being a music producer, that helps you have an understanding of how music affects and how different parts of the song have different meanings, have different feelings, and being a composer, obviously, you write music, that's what you do. And then, what else? Whatever music related, I try to be involved with. It got started for me just learning to read, write, and play music, and that got me involved in everything else, pretty much.
Understood. All right, cool. All right, we'll have a little more fun with it. Is AbJo your real name? And
No.
If not, where did it come from?
No, and I always tell people it's a long story, but that's just because to give it some mystique. I was playing around with a lot of different names when I started making beats. Like, you had to come up with a name for yourself to being a hip hop music producer. So I can't even remember the first names that I had, but they all were kind of, I wouldn't say anagrams. They were just different variations of like plays maybe on my name, and then eventually it just became AbJo from me coming up with a pseudonym for myself. I didn't like having just like trying to come up with some creative name. I'm just gonna call myself Abstract Jones or Abraham Joseph, and then it turned into AbJo just because people were just trying to shorten the name. I was like, yeah, AbJo, it works. All right, so I went with AbJo, and it just stuck. And I think somebody called me that. I didn't think I made it up. Somebody called me AbJo. I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's fun. So it worked out perfectly, and then AbJo just stuck with. And then Abraham Joseph actually came kind of after the fact. I was trying to come up with a bunch of so AbJo is the nickname for Abraham Joseph. AbJonian Sanders, which people also hear all the time, is like the alter ego of Abraham Joseph.
Okay, so there's two. Okay.
Yeah, so there's two. So like, he's like the AbJonian Sanders is like the superhero, and the secret identity is Abraham Joseph, and that's the pseudonym for Aaron Nash. That's me. Okay, so it's like it's a whole thing that I play with, and so it was inspired by this artist, this producer, multi-instrumentalist that I've been following for a long time, named Madlib, who has a bunch of different aliases as well. So that was my thing. I was like just inspired by that. He has, he goes by different names for different genres of music he makes as well. So he has one for when he's just making his very avant-garde jazz, and he has one when he's just making like his typical like his beats, his usual foray of, and then he has another one for when he's making broken beat music, or he has another one when he's just DJing, or he has another one when he's just rapping. I'm sure people are familiar with Quasimodo. That's one of his famous aliases, and he pitches up his voice and like raps, and he has this whole character. That's what I was inspired by, making those different names for myself.
Okay, are there stylistic differences for AbJonian Sanders and Abraham Joseph? Do you have that quite yet, or? Kinda,
sorta. Abraham Joseph is just kind of like the real world, like the comic, like I said, a secret identity of myself. So Abraham Joseph is like the real person who doesn't really have any super, if we're gonna say it, just for instance, he doesn't have any super qualities about him. He's just a normal average Joe. But AbJo is the name. They're like, oh yeah, it's the name. Just take Abraham Joseph. Everybody calls me AbJo, and I like that person in and of himself. He's the DJ, right? You know what I'm saying? He's the producer, and so I'm that person in real life. AbJonian Sanders is like the character that I write for, that's like he's in the story. If I ever have a story for something that I'm like producing for, AbJonian Sanders is the character that Abraham Joseph or AbJo is writing for.
Right. Okay.
So to speak. So like if I have like I have
there.
Yeah. Like in like my beat tapes or whatever, like AbJonian is traveling in like the going from place to place, and there's these little like blurbs and voices and stuff that I use to kind of like, or sounds that are like AbJonian Sanders. That's like me. Getting that kind of thing. So like it's a whole thing. I kept up with it since I was in college, and everybody's been calling me AbJo. That's just like it just worked out perfectly. Like AbJo, that's who I am in real life, but that's like my nickname, it's my stage name. But AbJonian Sanders is the character, and that's like who's like I'm creating the music for. That's like the soundtrack for, essentially.
Okay.
You know, when I do stuff, or when I'm rapping, for instance, like I'm AbJonian Sanders, or when I'm singing, I'm AbJonian Sanders. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I like that. A little bit about In Limbo. And how'd you come up with the idea? What's the concept? I see there's multiple parts. What is that?
In Limbo kind of started as an initial idea a while ago as a film, actually, that I wanted to make, like a short film. I've always wanted to do music videos, but that's the only thing I haven't gotten into is producing film. And I definitely want to get into that. That's like the next move for me, is to like start directing and producing short videos or short films and stuff. And it started out as me. My inspiration came from me having I used to have wild dreams when I was a kid, and they've gotten a little bit more crazy as an adult, more because I've been practicing like lucid dreaming, you know. And I've been practicing for about like 7-8 years now. And I remember having these sequence of dreams that not that I would necessarily they wouldn't happen over and over again, but I remember them so distinctly that they're bits and pieces of it would pop up in other dreams that I'd have. And so they weren't in any fashion linear, but they made sense as a story somehow, and you piece them together the right way. And I was thinking about how that played into my real life, and so I wanted there to be a film. I wanted to make a film, like a music video, like a really long form music video, I guess you would say, that kind of represented that like non-linear yet still
Cohesive.
Cohesive. There you go, cohesive fashion. And that's what the album is in soundtrack form, essentially, is that played without the film part. Like, you can hear from start to finish how that works out. Like, I guess the best way to explain is it's a 24-hour period, start to finish, essentially. It starts with me having that dream, and then waking up, and then going through and on through my real life, and then having daydreams where I'm in limbo, like having this dream that's like it's not reoccurring, but it's happening in different pieces in time. Like in the middle of the whole album, I'm transitioning in limbo in between, like kind of being up, half up and asleep or whatever, and then eventually I get to being in another part of in limbo that happens not as far as the album is in linear fashion, but it just pops up. And that's part of that dream. And then if you were to play it, it would make sense as far as part 4, starting from day to night kind of thing, and then back to day. But I put it in non-linear fashion just because it, like, as far as the sound, the music goes, it made sense. Like, okay, this is starting here, and then you have the actual grand opening.
Yeah, so like those dreams, each one stands on its own, but if you examine them as a whole, they do have correlation.
Yeah, so there's like two. So what I did was I had 2 linear stories going on at the same time. One was just with the sound and how it went. Started like it came from here, and then you have like your middle part, and then you have like your climax, and then you have your come down, and then you have your like the epilogue, the end, and then you have, but the story in and of itself is out of order. But you have the bits and pieces that where they are, like they follow in order, but the music follows and makes sense sonically. Mm-hmm. So that the film was supposed to follow like that too. I wanted to be like start to finish, the film would like flashback to the dream.
Okay. And then any plans for the film?
I do have plans. I don't think I'm gonna have. I have barely the video treatments for it. Uh-huh. But I need to get them really finished before I decide I'm going to start sending them out to people. Like I need to pick who I'm going to have shoot it and when I'm going to shoot it. What would be a good? I wanted to feature the city. I wanted to feature San Diego. Mm-hmm. That was one of the other things too. Is that I remember the dreams happening in, maybe not specifically in San Diego, but that featured different parts of. And so like that I just have to scout and like really take the time and effort to like plan how I'm going to do this start to finish. And which would be cool for the process too, because then I could be shooting. It's a whole thing. The In Limbo in and of itself to me is a whole encompassing idea that it includes film, video. I have a whole thing that I want to do, like with making like stickers and having somebody go out and like it's really crazy. I have to once I get all the treatment down into like kind of a short like like an overview, like a proposal format.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to release that too, kind of like almost like a little booklet that explains the whole story.
Are you looking at 2017? You think we'll have this?
Maybe, honestly,
summer 2017.
I think I wanted to have it finished. Maybe not around this time next year, but like come fall next year. That's realistic for me. Is that to have that thing out, and then in between now and then, like just trying to relay the album from album format, just from listening to live format eventually. So I'm going to be adding elements to like my live sets or to my performances from here until then, that it will include, like, I'll be playing the song and I'll be playing songs off the album. Like, I DJ now, I primarily DJ, but I want to start adding to my DJ sets me playing my songs and playing guitar or playing piano, and then adding a band and like having like a 2 or 3 piece band that would help back me up, to play certain pieces of the songs like that. Whenever I do, it's like I said, it's all encompassing. At some point, maybe doing like a little mini tour or 2 next year.
Okay, I'm happy I asked. So In Limbo as a whole is a much bigger idea than just the one release or what that is there as it stands.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's what we're looking forward to over some time.
Yeah, and then I have, so In Limbo, like I said, it's an all encompassing idea. I have I released kind of like a little mixtape that kind of is a prelude to to In Limbo.
And what's that called?
It's called See You on the Other Side, and it's also this project, See You on the Other Side, that also accompanies another project I'm going to release in actual mixtape format, so to speak, called All Is Not Lost.
When does that come out?
And I want that to come out maybe not next month, or if not next month, early January, which actually would be great, because I'm still kind of thinking about how to format it to all make sense. But these 3 pieces, See You on the Other Side, In Limbo, and All Is Not Lost, all create this whole story, the backstory for it, and then this kind of overlying, like, continuing thought conversation that I want to keep about talking about dreams and talking about how I've always had like an interesting relationship with reality and non-reality, or non-ordinary reality, as some people like to say, and how, like, I think dreams are both causal and have effect on people in such a way that it affects the overall mental health of not just the individual, but the collective. And what people agree to as reality is the thing I'm trying to get at. Like, in my opinion, everybody has a collective perception of what is and what isn't, but individually people can have just as valid of perceptions of something that maybe other people don't see or don't experience, but is totally actually happening. And the dreams that I had, I felt like they happened. They're so real to me that I for moments of time, like when I was younger and I had those dreams, I felt like I was living a dream at bits and points of times in my life. And it was because I was also doing some wild stuff. I was young, I was doing some reckless things, and I was, out living my life and doing stuff. And I had experiences in that, like I said, I had, for sure, as far as I'm concerned, were in real life. But then also I felt like maybe, or at least for somebody looking on the outside in, it's like, no, that's wild. There's no way that actually happened. There's no way that you actually, like, flew or flew or jumped off cliffs, or like, landed in the ocean and you ended up in another world. Like, that's in Limbo, part of the crux of the story for me is ending up in the ocean and experiencing a whole different kind of reality, a whole other world, and then coming out of the ocean, and then, like, it's like this life-changing event that happens to me that's in a dream, but then I'm not sure if it is a dream or not. And so I'm in this in-between space wondering whether or not it's actually happening or not. And so I'm going through the motions of like having things happen, kind of like experiencing phantoms and ghosts and things happening, but I'm seeing it but nobody else is, or they're happening to me, or I'm experiencing them but they're not happening to anybody else, even though it's really crazy, just the idea of how people can be so affected by their dreams that it affects them in real life. But I'm talking about actually, the inspiration for it actually kind of came from, and I know this is corny, but came from Inception too. Not just Inception, but from a bunch of different books that I've read that all culminated in me, like, thinking to myself, okay, if there's something original in thought that I'm gonna have as far as portraying, like, how in music format, what I'm trying to say. Music for me is not just about just making music. It's about having a message or having something to say. And then Limbo was me saying this particular piece of work is me trying to say, I guess that everything isn't as it always seems, pretty much. And that's not something that's original to just one person. It's everybody that's experiencing this. I'm talking about the whole collective reality that we experience is not the only reality that we have. Mm-hmm. So in saying that, like, I think there's ways that in my head that you could portray that were original, because I've seen so many different ways that people have explained it, but I don't think anybody's ever done it quite like this yet. And especially in this the context of now and how we're all experiencing this kind of like how we're all kind of more aware now of mental health and awareness and being aware of that kind of stuff. Yeah. That I think it's a perfect time to start talking about that kind of stuff and how it has more power now than it might have had. I think the last time we may have had this kind of the last time we were just seriously discussing this conversation was when in the 70s and the 60s when drugs and the power of drugs kind of like with the drug war, the acid and the speed and the blah blah blah, all that stuff had such a tremendous effect on people that people were like the music I felt like was the center of that conversation. So that's where I'm trying to get back to, is that conversation here, talking about that kind of stuff, not just the drugs or anything, but even though that's involved, talking about how people are experiencing that without them, and people are experiencing them through music, and how music is a part of that conversation too. That not that between the illusion or the non-illusion, or not being sure if it's an illusion or is this reality or not. And yeah, just
that's such a big part of it. Is it kind of can all be summed up in the experience. You think of like the same time Jimi Hendrix experience. Mm-hmm. That's what he was talking about. It's that's what music is. It's a shared experience. It's exactly what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. We have all these shared, we have this shared consciousness to an extent.
Right.
We do get to experience things. Have you thought? I mean, I'm sure you have, but how do you plan to really communicate that whole? Because it's such a long goal. And how do you plan to really communicate that? And do you see this, I guess the main question is do you see this as like is this going to be like an album cycle, or is this like a career-long type goal? Is this really like what drives your career, or is this what you're working on? Is this limited to in Limbo, or is this an AbJo thing?
No, I think this is definitely going to be an AbJo thing. This is going to be a career-long process for me. But I this is me kind of chipping away the first, like, really getting into it. Like, I'm trying to shape this whole straight out of marble, and I'm going for the first like form. Like, I'm trying to just get out the initial idea first with this album, and so in that, like, I'm aware that for some people, like, I'm sure some I have gotten comments too. It's definitely rough around the edges of the project, but I also wanted it to be like that because it is an in progress thing. Like, I don't think I'm gonna be really done with the whole idea for a while now, at least for the next couple of years, until it gets format. Like, I want to reformat, I want to redo the album and also, like I said, adding the film element and adding the writing and getting the expressing it in writing format too will help complete the whole vision, will help complete the whole structure to make it really fine-tuned. And that's something, like I said, that I think until next year we won't see the next installation of that, the next version.
So looking at the scope of that's
right on track. Yeah, exactly. I'm looking at the scope, and I hope that will also, finishing that will also kind of pull me out of that, and so I can get into the next project, which I hope will discuss, either elaborate on or propel me into the next part of that subject that I want to get into, because it's not just one thing. That's one thing that I'm talking about, but I also want to integrate that into other parts of other things that I want to say too. Absolutely. But that's where the basis of my message, I guess you'd say, is coming from.
It's good to know that there is a real message there. So much music these days doesn't have a message. Mm-hmm. So that's I'm really happy we asked that question. So we'll shift gears a little bit here. Tell us about your affiliation with Soulection. That's a big name. Everybody loves them. They have the show on Apple Music. I'm a big fan myself. We're in Southern California. They're huge here. Yeah, tell me about that. How'd it come about? Whatever you got.
I guess I can start with my initial relationship with the two founders, Andre Power and Joe K. So I went to school. I graduated from the Art Institute of California in San Diego in 2012. But I met Andre Power through a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, in 2010, I think, around 2009, 2010. And we got to be cool and everything. We were hanging out, and he introduced me to he introduced me to Joe, who was coming down to San Diego to come DJ at his event that he was coordinated with another group of friends of ours, called Art in the Park at Bluefoot, which at the time was at Soda Bar before we moved to Bluefoot. And so we were doing that there, and one thing led to another. We kind of hit it off, and Joe and Andre had presented to me that they were starting this digital label or whatever. They had already had the blog up. They had kind of just started the radio show. Joe at Cal State Long Beach, which he was doing at K Beach there, and they started the blog they started the label with the compilation that they had gotten instrumentals, really really dope instrumentals from people from all over, not just in the United States, but in Australia, from Russia, from Europe and stuff like that. And the first actual release they had was from Taku, who I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with now from right now from working with Wafi and going on tour with her, but who has also done tons of really dope remixes and stuff like that. And he tours and does shows with has done shows with like Flying Lotus and Gas Time Killer, and is also now famous for his photography, for his shop in Australia. I forget what the name of it is called, but it's awesome. But anyway, so that was me and Taku's albums. Mine was called Sankofa. Were the first couple of releases that they put out in Soulection, and then from there it was like July 2011 that I'd released that. But that was the first year. That was the initial January 20th, 2011 was our first like official year of being Soulection, and yeah. So it just the rest is history. Like I kept working with them since then, and I've been with them along for that journey, and they've included me. They've made a point to include me in part of that, and it's been a working relationship ever since.
That's pretty incredible. I didn't know we were getting like a sneak peek at like the Soulection backstory.
Yeah, but that's essentially it. We started out hanging out, and we're just on the same page about this is the kind of music we're trying to put out. This is the vibe. Eventually became like the vibes, the good vibes that we're trying to put out. But it was about this timeless classic music that we felt like it carried on from our parents and our circle of friends that we're just trying to carry on that legacy of great feeling great music. And it has evolved since then. Like I said, as a kind of a family vibe ever since, pretty much.
Oh, I love it. For music, it seems like it's been your whole life. Do you have any other passions? Is there anything else you're into?
I mean, I'm an artistic. I'm a creative. That I classify as that. That's the lifestyle that I live. I don't imagine. I can imagine myself in other places, but that's it's neither here nor there for me. Maybe one day I'll decide I want to cook or I want to build houses or something like that. That would be great, but it's not something that I feel like that it wouldn't be limiting myself. I know where I'm supposed to be at. It's just something that I know without having to say it. This is what I like doing. And, the only other thing I can see myself doing, which is also connected to music, is putting on events, is bringing people together. So that's why I'm involved here with the church too, is because it brings people together. It's very simple. It's the base bottom line. So I'm interested in that for that reason. And then music is always kind of it provides the overall atmosphere for that, bringing people together. So that's, if I'm involved in anything with an event, that's what I'm doing, is playing music or helping make sure that the music sounds good, or that there's, something in that there's an atmosphere. And so me putting on events is kind of me trying to get people to just do that. Just be in a room, vibing out, networking, whatever it is you do when you're hanging out with people. And then there's music involved, and I want to be in charge of that some way or another.
Well, I see you do events all over. You play a lot of shows when you're wearing your DJ hat. What's your favorite place to play? What's your favorite city? Maybe your favorite room?
Oh, that's a tough one. There are tons of them.
Crowd, even.
I really like playing in London. I've played in London a few times, but the last 2 times that I've played there, I played at Coco, which is a very famous venue there. And the room there, it's a repurposed theater for really really awesome live shows and stuff. And the last time I played there was in July, and it's always it's Soulection, so we always have a solid turnout. But the last one was a sold out show, and it was great. That room sounds amazing. The crew there, that runs the sound there is amazing. But yeah, London is awesome. Just the reception for those people. Different areas seem to have like a different vibe, appreciation for the kind of music that I play, the kind of music that Soulection is about. So when you go to London, we have a huge fan base there, so it's always live. And another place I like playing, just for me personally, not even maybe because of Soulection, but Seattle is actually great. I love the Pacific Northwest. I really love the vibe out there in general, and they're really about their underground scene out there, which is I'm big on. That's where how I got into music wasn't through listening to the radio. Unfortunately, it was through listening to music that was passed down and LimeWire music and and blogs and finding music on blogs and all that good stuff. So that was my scene. That was where I was about now, and from just word of mouth, people just knowing. So I got into listening to like Stone's Throw and listening to Duck Down and a lot of underground hip hop rap and stuff like that. And that's what got me into electronic music, listening to Brain Feeder, like the Flying Lotuses and Flying Lotuses, Gas Lamp Killers, and the Teebs and the John Waynes and DiBiase and stuff like that. That was the beat scene. The LA beat scene is huge. I love. That was where my motivation came from. Is from that scene from LA. A lot of people's too, but particularly that scene. And yeah, so just the West Coast is where it's at for me, and I think now maybe I'm still exploring places. That's what's crazy. I haven't been everywhere yet. Have you
played Low End Theory?
I have played Low End Theory once.
How was
yes, that was awesome. And I actually opened up I was playing a set right next to Gas Lamp Killer, which was great. So that was cool.
Incredible.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, you play a lot of shows. So who's your favorite to perform with? You got to perform with Gas Lamp. There's one. I know you did Lauryn Hill recently. You opened for Lauryn Hill. You had the tour with Snake Hips. Who's your favorite? You had to pick one.
Opening for big acts is always fun. But it has a different kind of experience than maybe playing actually with somebody. And I've gotten to hang out with and play with a lot of different DJs and artists. Right now, my favorite, and I've been collaborating with him for a little while now, is J.R. Jarris. And he's also from San Diego, from Mira Mesa, and he's killing it right now. He's one of the few artists I know that from our the SoundCloud generation, not just the SoundCloud generation, but from San Diego particularly, even, that's really doing some awesome stuff and is not stuck to just being here and part of this scene. I mean, we could talk about the San Diego music scene all day, but there's something about the people who want to expand, not just past their city, not just past their state, but want to reach out to the whole world, essentially, that have a certain kind of vibe about them. And Jared Jarrett is really dope. Sasha Marie, also from Soulection, another DJ. She's really great to play with. I just like to play with people that have. I'm talking about live too, especially, but that have a certain kind of, maybe it's really biased, I guess, because we're into a lot of the same music and playing the same kind of music live. But there's just something there's nothing like being on the same page with somebody musically, with that kind of thing, and people who also are influenced by you, that kind of thing. I think a lot of what makes collaborating with people great isn't just that there's the diversity, but that there's power in numbers and unity of the same kind. Being homogenous is not looked at to be very, obviously it doesn't create a very different output than you would normally get. But when you team up with people who are a lot about the same, you can kind of, I see it collaborating with very like-minded people allows you the space to focus on what you're really good at. Which you're really, really good at. Mm-hmm. And with, say for instance, with J.R. Jarris, I'm even though I'm very musically well versed, there's something about I'm very so focused on the musicality of things, and I'm not thinking about just how it makes people move. Sometimes, I'm so busy trying to make these crazy chords and sounds and drums, and I'm not just thinking about how simple it is just to have a certain kick or snare somewhere and having this little sound. And so I think he's a really great producer. Sasha, for instance, is a really great DJ. She knows she's listening to people. She's actually paying attention to the crowd. I could be I'm such a, when I get into a space, I'm like really focused in it. And so I can forget about what's going on outside of me. And those two help me remember what's going on outside of me and how that has an effect both on the music that I'm playing, but how that's affecting them, that relationship between my ears and somebody else's. So, the two, for instances, that I can think of about collaborating with,
Well, put some pressure on them. Let's get an interview. Send them over to RnBass.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Set it up. That'd be cool. That sounds great. So along the same path, what was maybe your biggest holy shit moment in 2016 that you had? Was there any time you found yourself on stage or really anywhere when you were like, wow, this is happening?
I think it was it was earlier this year when we had our Soulection 5-year, and I decided to test run a couple songs from limbo in the crowd, and I started with it, and it was the first thing I think the first time I ever think I've sang in front of a crowd before like that, you know what I mean, where it was my music, and the reception I just was not expecting from at all. Not that I didn't think that it was going to go well, but it was just so live, and it was almost exactly the kind of the way that I wanted people to react. Like it was. All at once, it was like, yeah, this makes sense. This is exactly what I wanted. And at the same time, I was like, this really happened? I got exactly what I wanted, the exact expected reaction. I guess that comes from I'm such a perfectionist about my music. If I've ever put out or released any music, it's because I'm just like, I'm either like, I can't, I have to stop. I have to stop thinking about what I'm going to keep adding to it or taking away. I just have to put it out. Or I'm just like, I have to let it go because otherwise it'll never get out. So that was one of those. It was one of those instances, that particular performance, that I just decided if I don't do this now, I might not ever. So I did, and it turned out really well. And this is in front of another sold out crowd. And yeah, that was just wild for me. I've had other moments where I could have, but that was one in particular that I'll never forget. Like that experience, the energy. It was, like I said, that collaboration. I think I'd finally managed to balance being so focused and into the music and what I was doing at the time, and seeing how everybody else was reacting to it, and me doing the same thing, is reacting to them. So that was really dope. It was truly, truly dope. Like, actually,
yeah,
it was just
5 years coming. It sounds like.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and that was that too. Just realizing it was 5 years in the making that happen, and it was. I saw my work right in front of me. That's what it was.
Ah, yeah. All right, so sticking with the same theme, are there any shows maybe in 2017 that you want to play? Shows, venues, festivals, anything specific that you've got in your sights that you would like to do next year?
I'm keeping my eyes out for a lot of stuff.
Cities you want to travel to?
Yeah. I'm trying to go back to Asia. I've only been to Japan, Tokyo specifically, and to Seoul in South Korea. But I want to explore other places and check out Thailand, for instance, and play places, the more exotic places, and see what that life is like. I just want to explore it, and I feel like music is a great way for you to not just to travel, but to also connect, and just continue to it's a realization thing. Like being from somewhere like this, from San Diego, where there are tons of people from everywhere. I don't feel like San Diego is just like tons of natives. There are tons of people from everywhere that end up in San Diego, that you kind of feel inclined to reciprocate. Like, I need to be out there to see where all these people are from, and it just helps you realize that, I come from, it makes sense that I'm so whatever. Like, that the creativity isn't just something that's born in me. It's also fostered here. And that's also in my message too. I'm repping for San Diego wherever I go, whether I say it or not. That's I'm about that life, and that's so important to me in a certain sense. More so because if you're not recognizing that your influence came not just from the outside world, but came from right outside, came from inside, that it comes from literally the external, like just being where you are, you deny yourself the opportunity to really acknowledge important parts of yourself that can add to your creativity, that can add to your motivations, that can add to your inspiration and stuff like that. I think everything that you experience is open for interpretation in real life, in your expressions like that. You know, that's where most people, that's where all artists, in my opinion, grab inspiration from real life, from what they experience. And being here in San Diego is also something I take as a part of my, you know, inspiration to do things. Like what I'm saying, limbo for me is something that I want to take and make about, not just about my, you know, the whole concept, the idea, but also expressing my gratitude and expressing and making clear the inspiration that San Diego had on me too. You know,
where you take from. Okay, well, you know, this is the fun part. I like to let you brag a little bit. So who have you worked with, performed with? What's an all-star lineup of the people that really make you? You got to touch a little bit on some of your really close friends, but at times it can be hard to get you to brag. So yeah, be shameless. Who's the all-star lineup?
I don't know. It's only when I think about the particular situation. Okay, like for instance, like I'm working with Talib Kweli, for instance, and Young Guru, not directly, but I am emailing. They're asking my personal thoughts on a track that they have. So Talib really liked the track, I guess, that I produced with another label mate of mine, Mr. Carmack, and we've been in an email relationship back and forth about trying to mix this song that we're doing. So I'm actually, I gotta hit him back soon now that I think about it, to let him know really what I thought about the mix, about this, you know, for the track that we're working on. So I'm doing that. That's cool, and we have kind of a working relationship, and he's gonna, you know, yeah. So I gave him the track on contract, and in return, he's actually gonna do a verse for me for a track that any track that I want to do. So we're working on that, getting that done, so we can get to doing that verse whenever we can. So that'll be cool. And I think I've opened for him too. So I know him. Like I've seen him around a couple of times, and so that's something I could brag about. That like I have, like he owes me a verse.
Hill, those are just casual names.
Yeah, that I could throw out. And like, and his son actually is a fan of mine too. I've met him I met him at least once before. And so I check up on his stuff. It's just cool that like, yeah, I like know him from around the way. Essentially, is a way of saying that. But that's not a brag. That's more like oh yeah, he knows him because he's, you know, so and so or whatever, and he's. Yeah, so there's that, and then there's also, let's see, I mean, these are personal heroes of mine that I like. For instance,
absolutely.
Blue and Exile. I don't know if anybody's heard of them, but if you do, go look. If you don't know, go look them up. They're and BLU. Yeah, BLU. There you go. Great. Their album Below the Heavens also they dropped in 2007. Also had a lot of inspiration. I got a lot of inspiration to start making beats with Exile. Is a huge influence on my overall sound. And he's been doing it for a while. But if people don't know, they need to know now that I'm sure people have heard of Aloe Black. Him and Aloe Black have a group called Emanon that they've back in like their first album that they released back in '95. Waiting Room was also a huge inspiration for me too. Like if I remember correctly, Aloe Black is from San Diego. If I remember correctly, or he's lived in San Diego or something like that. You know, and XL has a relationship with cats down here. You know, so San Diego has some credibility too from some cats from LA and from
Laguna Beach.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, from Laguna Beach. But anyway, so like I've been in the room and chilled and kicked it with, you know, Aloe Black, and Exile is a fan of mine apparently. You know, he likes what I do. A friend of mine has been working with him, has been touring with him, and he's been producing for him. Choosy. They've been touring and doing shows together and stuff like that, and he's asked for my advice. He's asking for my advice on this album that him and Aloe Black just released, actually, not too long ago.
Choosy was on the Fashion album, right?
Yes, he was on the Fashion album. And so I've done a show and opened for Nas essentially. Then I've been in the same room with him, and Nas is obviously the coolest person in the world.
Right. So you forgot Nas. Okay. All right.
Yeah. And so that kind of stuff. Like I guess you could say I brush elbows with a lot of famous musicians and artists and stuff like that by way of just me being a DJ and performing and doing stuff. You know, like just the other day I was kicking it, and even though I don't necessarily know him personally, we just know the same people. We have friends. Like we end up at parties in the same place sometimes. Anderson .Paak. You know, I just did an opening show, and he was there, and we were kicking it or whatever, and there he is. Like, you know, I'm doing an opening set. Oh, cool, word for Snake Hips. Yeah. You know, in LA for that.
Oh, and that makes sense. Yeah. Right.
You know, and I'm backstage, and like that's what I'm saying. That's I wouldn't say that I could brag about that, but I have working relationships enough with people that I brush elbows and casually. Oh yeah, how's your so and so doing? Oh yeah, it's cool. We're good. And that being part of this industry, it's really great to know that you can just be brushing up with elbows with people, and the next thing you know, you're touring and doing shows with them. Like it can work like that if you can just being a DJ. I think is one of the best kind of jobs you can have as far as like networking with folks, because again, that's like the DJs I feel like are now part of a whole working. They're a cog in a huge piece of an industry that it carries on. It's everywhere. Being a DJ isn't just like, oh, you're just playing music. Like being a DJ is a part of connecting the dots between people. And
very essential.
If you work the right way, it's not just you. Like I said, not just you playing music. It's about connecting with a crowd and connecting crowds with other crowds, with different people, and networking. I think being a DJ particularly has helped me push my personal music career a lot more. Yeah. Without DJing, I wouldn't have been able to meet the people and make things that happen like I did with Tyler Quali or brushing elbows and making like things happen, and just all of a sudden out of nowhere, and I'm opening up for Lauryn Hills because I was promoted. People I have clout because of what I do, and I've worked hard at it. Yeah, I've worked. So if there's anything I have to brag about, it's that I've worked hard at just being not being the best DJ that I can be or being the best, but just being as proactive about my career as possible, which DJing has helped me do.
Yeah, showing up sometimes is a huge part of it.
Yeah, just showing up and being doing it. Yeah, I'm representing myself wherever I go, and it's a great way to represent yourself, especially as a musician, and a good way for you to represent your sound too. So wherever I'm going, I'm DJing. I'm not just DJing for a crowd to make people happy. I'm DJing to express myself, to express in a way that I wouldn't be able to do just playing my own music. I'm expressing where my influence comes from and where I might be going on next. So not just where I'm going, but where I'm going to. So, and people can see that and like, oh yeah, I love what you played tonight. Like, what do you just DJ? No, I produce. I do so and so. It's a calling card for me.
It's my most favorite question. It's what's your creative process? How does it start for you?
It starts. I don't think it's actually a start or finish thing. It's an ongoing process that I believe I started when I first wanted to start making music, and it's just been there's a precise start and finish. Doesn't happen when I sit in a chair and I turn on Ableton, or when I turn on Pro Tools, or when I turn on Reason, or when I step in front of a keyboard, or it doesn't start when I just have an idea or a thought about a line or a melody.
Walk me through the process. So I'm sure there's a ton of ideas you have, but you don't lay them all down. And of course, what the idea you take, it changes as it develops. But walk me through just that sort of from the inception, if you will, like you talked about before, to when you're like, okay, I'm gonna lay this down, or I'm gonna make this a concrete idea.
Okay, so I guess the best way I could put it, I don't know if this is easy or not, for people to get, but I imagine this is the best way I can explain this. I take my actual living experience, going out and living my everyday life, and I, whether I consciously do it or not, I store that information, from the experience and stuff like that in my head. And imagine it's just like this big pool, this room of different ideas and thoughts and, concepts just kind of mingling around, and they're just there. And so I just keep adding and adding to and adding to. And it's so just essentially or better yet, let's put it like a little, I'm just making little notes in my head. I'm like a Rolodex. I have a Rolodex of thoughts. That's too old. People won't get that. Old people will get that. I'm just taking different snaps and saving them in my head for whenever I'm ready. Sure, for whenever I'm ready to when I'm ready to sit down and just kind of let go, output. I'll sit and. For me, it's not about just having the one solid idea, but trying to commingle and put together, collaborate a bunch of different. Maybe a bunch, maybe a couple, maybe a whole plethora of ideas into this one, output, whatever that might be. And so I keep adding to, and then I remove. I add and I remove. And when I'm adding to, I'm living my life. I'm doing whatever I'm doing. And then when I finally get to the place where I'm sitting in front of a piano or in front of a keyboard, in front of a computer to make it happen, it's not like I know exactly which sequence of ideas. I just kind of let them kind of come out, and I let like whatever that is, it turns into what it and then I decide to form it as it's coming out. You know, so it's for me, it's a stream of consciousness thing. I'm kind of I have a general idea of what I'm trying to put together, but how it's going to come out, I won't be sure until the ideas come out, and then I piece them together to make what I make. Like for instance, when I make a beat, like I kind of start with a bunch of ideas sitting on my table. That's okay. That's a good way to explain it. I have a bunch of different ideas. Like I have a bunch of pieces of that could fit together on a table, and I figure out which ones work the best for that.
Are these figurative pieces, or
figurative,
do you write this music down?
Figurative pieces. Sometimes I haven't written down music in a while, but I always record my ideas to separate, sessions and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then from those sessions, I put together those pieces into one session, and that becomes the beat. That's just that's one way that I would do that. For an album, I would do the same thing, but in macro format. So I would have a bunch of different sessions that I would pull into one folder or one space, and then that would be included in a whole nother folder of ideas in the space, stuff like that. So it'd be different rooms in this one building, and then I'm cohesively trying to create ways to get to those rooms, opening doors and creating pathways to get through other doors to get to this, in this whole space, and then they all lead to this one fat room, and they all cohesively make sense in that room, but they're all ideas that connect, one way to the other, or there's only one way to get to that one room, but you can still get to the big room from there. You know what I'm saying? It's lead to that. And that in itself is how I like for my whatever project I put out. That's how I like them to kind of play out for real, for the most part. When you hear my music, it's not just like this whole linear thought. It seems like that because that's the only way that people perceive that. But they all connect one way or another to one big idea that I have.
So you choose your path, but you're gonna get there.
Yeah, you're gonna get there, but it all connects to this one.
That raps in like you were saying. We all have this. We may experience it different ways, but it's the same sort of input. We're gonna end up.
I leave them, and essentially, I'm leaving them open to interpretation, and people will interpret them different ways. I know how I interpret them, but the truth is, somebody else can come up with a different interpretation of how this beat, works or how it sounds to them, and I'm like, oh, that's dope. And then I add that returns back to the pool of thoughts of ideas and stuff that I'm using to create another piece of work. So it's just one long conversation. It's a continuous piece of work. Everything that I do has connects one way or another to one whole idea, one whole thought. And that is, like I said, that's my message. That my conversation is the message. My conversation about whatever that is that I'm talking about. But it all connects one way or another, so it makes sense still. But each individual thought maybe not be so linear. It has its own message in and of itself, but it connects to this one big thought that I have. That is AbJo, essentially.
So yeah, to wrap up a little bit, what's going on in the next 90 days? Do we got new music coming out, more shows? There's holidays coming up. Is it quiet time? What's up in?
No. It's I'm keeping busy through. I'm year round. I don't like to stop anywhere, but maybe I'll stop doing one thing to work on another. And so one of the things I'm focusing on now that I just dropped the album, and I might still be working on music and stuff like that, but the focus for me is back on really throwing these events. And I have this event that I'm throwing in the Bay called Flavors, #Flavors. And I want it to be not just a party, but a brand essentially for what I'm trying to as far as my live physical aesthetic, trying to create almost kind of like trying to create in limbo in real life, making it happen in party format essentially. And right now it's just me just having the party and having the different kinds of sounds and feelings in one place happening. But it's like I said, it's a work in progress, just like all of my stuff is. I feel, but I'm working on it being a party that I can take everywhere, not just happening. Okay, that's essentially the idea for it. So right now it's there. But I'm transferring in the near future, it being from one venue to being a couple different venues that I'm throwing it at with different formats. Essentially, I want to do stuff where I want to do a Flavors event that has more that's focused on the live music. So we're having more live beat sets happening and more having a band come and play and do that kind of stuff. So I have a venue for that I'm working on. I want to do one where it's a more large format party where there's different rooms with different DJs happening with different kinds of sounds. That have different aesthetics all in one place. almost like a little mini festival. That's something I'm thinking about too. Yeah. And then I want flavors to be kind of a, like I said, party that can take. I'm transplanting from one city to another. And then the end goal is for flavors to be like, to be akin to like the do-over, to being like low end theory, or to being more like, I don't know. I want it to be kind of a mind of its own, organically happening thing that's still formatted a specific way. That still has structure that is building upon itself all the time. So,
where do we find information about flavors?
I have it posted on. I post about flavors and on Instagram and Twitter, but soon I will have somewhere to link people to like past events and future events.
Give us a shout when you do, and we'll support. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I post about flavors pretty much every other week, if not every week, just so people know, hey, this is what's going on. Here's I'm posting like when the next event is going to be, and trying to keep people involved. The next move for me is creating another hashtag for flavors called Flavors of the Week or Flavors of the Month. And so each flavor of the month for each event or whatever, or multiple events, that'll be like the overall aesthetic for that show for that month. So like next month is going to be more focused on strictly kind of local, like in the Bay kind of vibes and stuff like that. But the next ones will be like, for instance, we're going to do in February, it's going to be, Valentine's Day is the biggest, focus around February. So everybody's promoting Valentine's Day event and specials and so on. So we're going to do a Valentine's Day thing, for instance, which is easy, but you want to curate an event that works with that aesthetic. All right, so I won't say anything about that yet because that's not official. But when it does, you'll hear about it. And like I said, we're just kind of catering to both the usual crowd and also to the kind of aesthetic we're trying to build around and stuff.
Great. Is there anything else you'd like to say just to the audience in general and the message you have?
I just keep moving forward. That's my move always and forever. Keep moving forward.
Let's do the fun part. '80s or '90s?
'80s.
Tyson or Mayweather?
Tyson.
Funk or jazz?
Jazz.
Logic or Pro Tools?
Logic.
Future or designer?
Future.
George Clinton or Sly?
George Clinton.
Jay or Nas?
Jay.
Def Jam or Murder Inc?
Def Jam.
B or Re?
B.
Prefer to spin live or record a DJ set?
Live.
Rhythm or melody?
Melody.
Lil Yachty or Lil Uzi Vert?
I'm gonna say NA on that one.
NA. Drake or Breezy?
Oh, Drake.
Xbox or PlayStation?
Xbox. No, PlayStation. No, I had been swayed back and forth, but I'm gonna say PlayStation.
PlayStation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mac or PC?
Mac. All day.
Big or Pac?
Ooh, Biggie.
LeBron or Steph?
LeBron.
Dad hats or snapbacks?
Snapbacks.
Sway or Charlemagne?
Sway.
Doritos, blue or red?
Blue.
Studio or home recording?
Studio.
On stage or in the crowd?
Both.
Atlanta or Chicago?
Atlanta.
Drums or bass?
Drums.
Guitar or keys?
Keys.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs, definitely dogs.
Nightclub or day club?
Nightclub.
New York or LA?
LA. I'm sorry, I had to go. I love New York and everything about New York, but my family's from LA. I'm technically from LA, and there's really actually nothing like LA.
That sounds like an excuse, man. You don't want to offend New York.
Say what you want. I can say what you want. But I gotta rep the West Coast. That's
no
just.
Show
I have
New
loyalty.
York.
I'm sorry. I have loyalty.
All right, my man. That's it. That's everything. We're all done.
Word.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Of course, man.
Cool.